Hello everyone, I am Dr. Diana, and in this section, we will talk about the effect of breathing, pure oxygen, and air. Now let's discuss arterial blood oxygen saturation at different altitudes, while a person is breathing air, and while breathing oxygen, up to an altitude of about 10,000 feet, even when air is breathed. The arterial oxygen saturation remains at least as high as 90%. Above 10,000 feet, the arterial oxygen saturation falls rapidly until it is slightly less than 70% at 20,000 feet, and much less at still higher altitudes. Now let's discuss the effect of breathing pure oxygen on alveolar partial pressure of oxygen at different altitudes. So, when a person breathes pure oxygen instead of air, most of the space in the alveoli formerly occupied by nitrogen becomes occupied by oxygen. At 30,000 feet, an aviator could have an alveolar partial pressure of oxygen as high as 139 millimeter of mercury instead of 18 millimeter of mercury. When breathing air, the saturation remains above 90% until the aviator ascends to about 39,000 feet. Then it falls rapidly to about 50% at about 47,000 feet. Now let's discuss the ceiling when breathing air and when breathing oxygen in an unpressurized airplane. Aviator breathing pure oxygen in an unpressurized airplane can ascend to far higher altitudes than one breathing air. For example, the arterial saturation at 47,000 feet, when one is breathing oxygen, is about 50% and is equivalent to the arterial oxygen saturation at 23,000 feet, when one is breathing air. In addition, because an unacclimatized person usually can remain conscious until the arterial oxygen saturation falls to 50%. The ceiling for an aviator for short exposure times in an unpressurized airplane when breathing air is about 23,000 feet, and when breathing pure oxygen is about 47,000 feet, provided that the equipment supplying the oxygen operates perfectly. Now let's discuss the acute effects of hypoxia. Well, some of the important acute effects of hypoxia in the unacclimatized person breathing air, beginning at an altitude of about 12,000 feet, are drowsiness, lassitude, mental and muscle fatigue, sometimes headache, occasionally nausea, and sometimes euphoria. These effects progress to a stage of twitchings or seizures above 18,000 feet and above 23,000 feet in the unacclimatized person, and in coma, followed shortly thereafter by death. One of the most important effects of hypoxia is decreased mental proficiency, which decreases judgment, memory, and performance of discrete motor movements. For example, if an unacclimatized aviator stays at 15,000 feet for 1 hour, mental proficiency ordinarily falls to about 50% of normal, and after 18 hours at this level, it falls to about 20% of normal. This was all about this section. In our next section, Dr. David will join us and help us to understand the acclimation to low partial pressure of oxygen.
Explore our extensive library of over 1,800 video lectures to learn about a wide range of topics. Only on sqadia.com.